we can preach temperature control all day long. You know, blah, 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 blah.
But please give us something that a yeast that can tolerate it.
So some people just don't have the money or the ability to do stuff like that. You know, I remember in my 20s, you know, I lived in a hot apartment and, you know, and I couldn't afford a chest freezer, let alone a Renko controller. I was worried about where I was going to get my next six-pack from. I couldn't afford those things.
Right.
So I want to, now that I have the means, I'm going back and playing with yeast to see which yeast I can use at just room temperature and come up with a process so far as, you know, tailoring the nutrients if possible. You know, keep in mind, this is all, I'm just playing around with this stuff, you know, to see if it can be done. If it can't be done, it can't be done, but I'm definitely trying. And so the motivation is, I took a trip out to Napa. Me and Robin went out to Napa. And I was just quizzing. I'm quizzing the crap out of these winemakers. And I had the luxury of being able to talk to the head winemaker at Joseph Phelps. And, you know, they make great wine. And I'm like, what's your average fermentation temperature? Guy's like 78. I'm like, okay. You know, so
really?
I was like, okay. Went on to the next winery. What's your average fermentation temperature? 76. I didn't get anything lower than 72.
Damn.
And it's not like these wines are not world class. So obviously it can be done in the wine world, and they're doing it in the wine world. And yeah, I know they're aging it on oak and whatever it may be, and that might be what we have to do in the meat world too as well. Now, these guys are using nutrients. They are, you know, doing pump overs, you know, ask all those questions, you know. So it's not like they're just mixing it up and praying that it turns out great. You know, there is some protocols there. So can we adapt those protocols, and can we find some yeast strains to where if people just don't have the ability to be able to do it, can we at least say, okay, these are 4 or 5 yeast strains that you can use, and here is a tailored nutrient schedule that you can use to still make good meat.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to see that.
That's something that I've been working on.
Yeah, I would love to see that process. That's an article, and when you figure it out, please write an article so I can post it on Got Meat, please.
Well, I think if you can solve that little problem, if you can give people some ways of basically being able to do that, you know, maybe we can open meat making up a little bit more.
Yeah,
you know, that's
I agree.
All. You know, it could appeal to a few more people. You know, and thinking back to tasting my grandfather's strawberry and dandelion wine. Now, granted, I didn't know what the hell I was drinking back then. You know, I didn't know. I don't have the sensory training that I have now.
Yeah.
But I can tell you one thing: my grandpa didn't have a damn chest freezer, and
my daddy didn't
pretty
either.
Darn good.
My daddy did it in the basement in wine bottles with balloons. You know, I mean, and it tasted good to me.
Some of my best batches have been made in gallon jars with saran wrap on them. I mean,
yeah.
You know,
there's one caveat to that. My grandpa loved sugar, so his finishing gravity probably was 1090.
Oh God!
Oh my God!
It was like drinking like liquid Kool-Aid.
My daddy's
so it's like yeah.
My daddy's 25-year-old rhubarb wine that I found in the basement one Christmas year. And I was rootling about in the my dad's a pack rat. I was rootling about in the basement looking for something or another, and I found this wine. Brought it upstairs and thought this is going to be crap, right? Because I remembered he's making it in like the Michigan basement, which we're talking rock walls, coal chute, the whole 9 yards. And that's how old I am. And you know, balloons on the thing, and I remember the balloons expanding until they broke, etc. And I thought this is going to be awful, and I opened it up. It was super sweet, but it was actually really good. I was stunned.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like, oh my God. We got a metric butt ton
Now,
of questions coming in here.
Awesome. So I just want to say one thing. I want to finish that off, and then I'll answer some questions.
All right.
Modern mead making is still what I recommend for anyone who's going to say, hey, I want to get into mead making. But, in the meantime, we know that this process can make great mead. Is there another process at higher temperatures? Can we? I just want to explore those flavor profiles up there to see, hey, can it be done to get some different flavor profiles out there? Because you know what? If everybody's fermenting their meads at 62, I'm just that guy who just wants to hang out in the corner and just do some milk. Just to piss you off.
May I suggest K1V?
Yeah. Mine end up being 70-something because North Carolina. You live in Arizona, so I don't have to explain this to you. But, it's that kind of thing. So, yeah, if I can find a way...
You'd think in Canada might it be cold, but we actually get pretty hot summers.
Yeah. Well,
I don't have air conditioning.
But,
even with the temps, I still don't think you're just going to be able to just, let it free rise and go up to 90 or some crazy stuff like that. So, but if we can target people to say, hey, if you could just put it in your house and put it in a water bath or something like that, to where it doesn't go above a certain temp, that's what I'm kind of shooting for. I just don't think that you're just going to be able to put something in a corner and just let it free rise. So, but telling someone that, hey, you can just use a water bath and use this yeast and you'll get this given profile, I think that's doable for people.
Well, I've had really good luck with K1V because I don't have the facility for temperature control.
Yeah.
I
didn't before.
K1V and bread yeast, both of those work really well. So if you like Joe's Ancient Orange, go to town with your bread yeast.
Yeah, people knock it, but you can actually make a pretty decent mead with it. I mean,
I really like the one that I was drinking last week.
As a computer programmer,
yeah.
If I could write one virus, if the government gave me the okay to write one virus that would change the world, I would write a virus that would erase every damn thing about Joe's Ancient Orange off the internet.
No, you wouldn't, really?
It's one of my favorites, man.
Yeah, Joe's Ancient Orange has gotten more people into mead making than any single other thing.
It's my virus, and it's my game.
Yeah, okay, all right, yeah, I'll give you that. But please don't write the virus, because Joe's Ancient Orange continues to bring people into mead making. So
I totally understand why you'd say that, though, because honestly, Joe's breaks all the rules, and it doesn't really teach you that much about fermentation.
No, it doesn't. No, there's no question about it. It really does break all the rules. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does kind of sort of suggest that you should be doing things wrong.
Yeah.
But the
Maybe
thing
we
is,
get Joe to come to the Mazer Cup.
Joe is retired in Florida and not into the mead thing anymore.
We did have him on the show.
He was on the show in the first 5 episodes. So yeah. But only because.
Hey Joe, enjoy your retirement, bro.
Yeah, only because we had to, do a shout out to him because, Joe's Ancient Orange, but I mean, JAO has brought so many people into mead making, and it really is foolproof. No matter how big a fool they bring out, if they follow the directions, it works.
Yeah, I'm sure that more than half of the mead recipes I've made have been a variation on Joe's.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have turned out really, really well, and they're things that I do all the time.
Yeah. I don't do a lot of Joe's
say what
anymore.
you will about it, but,
it does
the bread yeast works really well here.
Yeah. Okay, so we got a buttload of questions here before we get off on a Let's Bash Joe's. Jaden says, do you have any specific preparation method that you prefer? Grinding, slicing, puree for fruit or berries, like that?
No.
That was easy.
Basically... I get a lot of my fruit from Northwest Wild Foods. I don't think that's any secret to anybody. I've posted that link on the forums, a few times. Depending on the fruit, like I said, sometimes if it's a lighter color berry, like a strawberry or a boysenberry or marionberry, I'll choose a certain percentage of it and put that in fermentation just to get a little bit better color extraction. But I basically just use frozen fruit. Even when I buy fruit from the store, so I guess this is prep. I'll freeze it before I'll use it in fermentation. 99% of the time.
I'm glad to hear I'm not the only one who does that.
Yep, it's just the way I've done it. I like it. I like the results that I get, but I get a majority of my fruit from Northwest Wild Foods. They've always been good to me. Plus, they give me a huge discount because I've been using them for years.
Okay.
Well, I just find when you freeze it, it releases a lot of juice. Like what you were saying about the strawberries, how you end up with this, very small bag of mush at the end. I find the same works for pumpkin when you've frozen it, and actually a lot of other fruits when you've frozen it. Not so much for like raspberries and stuff like that, but apples and any of the fleshed fruits tend to be like that when you've frozen them. You get a lot better extraction once they've been frozen.
Oh yeah, I'm right there with you. I always freeze all my fruit first, and then I smoosh it. I have a potato masher that and I potato mash that puppy, and I toss it in the mead. It works. I think it works way better.
I've been on a mission to find a potato masher that doesn't just let all the blueberries escape.
I know, right? They're not narrow enough.
No.
And I made the mistake with the freezer mead, which is currently in secondary, of just flinging the fruit in there and not putting it in a bag. Big mistake. Now I'm paying the price. So I got 4.5 gallons clear. Well, fruit free. Okay, it's not clear yet. And then another 1.25 gallons that has bits in it that I'm going to have to let settle and then rack again. So, yeah. If you're doing fruit, especially if you're freezing and then mashing it, it's a good idea to use a sparge bag or a brewing bag of some kind.
If I have them, I use them, but like I said...
yeah, same here. If I have them, I use them. If I don't, it's like whatever, yeah.
It's not going to make a break by me. I can understand why, people who care about, finishing volumes and all that stuff use them, but I don't really care about that.
Well, you know what we did? I mean, this one was a 6.5 gallon, and it was a little too big for my bucket, which is 6.8. And I mean, by the time you stir it and everything, you got overflow. So I racked it. I went ahead and just dumped. Well, I didn't rack it. I just turned it and just flipped it and dumped the damn thing into my 60-liter Spidell, which, during primary, it doesn't matter how much headspace you have because it's doing what it does. So, I left it in that for primary and then racked it back into the 6.8 and then into one of my 2 gallons that I'm going to be using for my tea mead experiments that I'm doing this winter. And the last bits were what went into the tea mead, and I had my husband holding it and tipping the thing up so that we could just go ahead and we put the 2 gallon into the sink, sterilized everything, sterilized a colander, dropped the colander into the 2 gallon, and then just dumped the whole mess in there and let the liquid drain out, and then threw away the fruit. Not pretty, but it works.
All right. Let's get to the next question.
Okay.
We got a lot of questions.
Yeah, we do.
I get them.
Okay. Next. Okay. Do you have a yeast preference? You kind of said you really don't.
I don't have a preference of yeast. I fit the yeast to whatever I'm making. It's great to have a lot of yeast knowledge. So I'll play around with a lot of different yeasts, and I will use whatever yeast I think is going to fit the recipe that I'm making. So I don't have a favorite yeast. I'll use whatever it takes, even if it means making 2 or 3 batches of the same mead and blending it together to get the profile that I want.
Okay.
With different yeast.
Joe Vinciguerra is asking, powdered tannins, primary, secondary, both, neither, or depends?
Primarily for me, I'll put them in primary because I just think there's something magical that happens with the yeast in the primary fermentation. but I will use Scotch Lab's finishing tannins sometimes